Hi there, welcome to another video. In this, I'm going to be reviewing a very old game between Louis Paulsen and Paul Morphy. I specifically want to focus on the power of creating constraints in a game and how that emerges into opportunities to actually win. So let's get started. So we have e4, e5, pretty much standard fare, nf3, nc6. So 4 knight opening, bishop comes to b5, bishop comes to c5, castles, knight takes the pawn. So that's pretty standard because usually like you would expect black to take the knight back and then you would fork between knight and bishop and get your piece back. So in this case, Morphy focuses on developing his piece rather than trying to work out that tactic. He takes it back, he captures it back with a d pawn, allowing for the bishop to develop as well and have open files for both queen and rook. So the bishop moves back, continues to attack. Morphy style was always like that. He goes back, and now it's not that he lost the pawn because he gets the pawn back. Right? So knight takes it back, rook takes it. So until this point, the reason he moves is also to support this pawn. Until this point, you'd say it's fairly standard fare. What changes is after this move. So the idea that white has is to basically move this pawn and then move d4 because he can't move d4 straight away given that bishop and queen are both controlling it. But this leads to a very, very bad situation if black can pounce on it. So you can pause the video here and think about what's your best move here going to be. Okay, I hope you were able to figure out. The best move here, which Morphy played, was queen to d3. This is what I mean by creating a constraint. Now, obviously, white wants to move this pawn because he wants to develop his bishop, and that's how his game is going to get better. By bringing the queen here, you have ensured that the d pawn is never going to move, which means the bishop is constrained. He's restricted from actually developing his piece. And that's really bad. And you're not in a position to actually push the queen away with something like this because now you have the rook and queen both controlling the square. So given all of these constraints, you can't kick away the queen from this hole, which is d3. And you can't develop your bishop. You're kind of stuck. So white does his best thing to develop his bishop from the other side. Bishop moves back, he captures, queen takes it, kind of reinforcing the attack here as well, seeing if some kind of attack can come in. But Morphy doesn't let go even of that. Develops his bishop while supporting that, cutting off any counterplay. Now, white wants to move his bishop away, but he realizes that this pawn is gone. So he needs to defend this pawn, and therefore this particular move to defend this pawn so that his bishop can come out. And I think this completes the final part of the development puzzle, saying, hey, look, I am completely in control. I have a doubled up rook on an open file. I have a queen that's sitting on a big hole that white created. I have at least one of my bishop aiming at the king, the other bishop aiming at the queen. So this is a position which you would call as rife with possibilities. So finally, white decides to come here asking for an exchange. So you capture, I capture, let's go on. It might not be my best position, but at least I can do something about it. And here is where the romantic era of chess was in full blown glory. Morphy apparently took 12 minutes for this move and then decided to capture the bishop. And I've given you the move. If you really want to understand this game and appreciate the nuances of it, I would suggest pause the game here, set this up on a board, and actually see what happens after white accepts the sacrifice. Can you find the combinations that lead to victory? I hope so. Do this exercise because doing it will actually make you appreciate it much better and help you understand and learn things at a deeper level. He captures, it starts with a check, king moves away, and you begin with attacking the rook. Now, obviously, the rook is something that can be sacrificed here so the queen can come back and all of that. But he decides to save it. That's the only square he can save it. It's a constraint. The rook is forced to go to d1. There's no other square. So now you have your check, king moves, you discover check, and you're anyway getting this rook for free. Might as well have given the rook away with the queen support. King moves here, check again, king moves back, bishop discovers a rook check, and finally king goes back to h1, and black captures the f2 pawn, clearing up all the things around the king. So you have this possibility of a checkmate, right? And it's so many different ways in which this game can get over. For example, the direct threat here is bishop g2 checkmate, and there's no way to prevent this. So the only way to do that is to queen f1, and which means you lose the queen, rook comes back, and even at this point, you could say the game is kind of equal. In the sense, the pieces are roughly the same. White has lost two extra pawns, but black does have a double pawn, an isolated pawn. So it's kind of good counterplay, can ensure that the game becomes a drawish position. But black doesn't give up, right? So he's always thinking about checkmate. So now finally white decides to take his rook back, connect the rook so that he might find some counterplay if possible. But he's relentless, right? So he's always going for the attack and seeing what can be done. Now the pawn moves finally with the possibility of capturing the rook. What he did not see was the bishop coming back, preventing this, because if the bishop takes bishop, then there's a checkmate in two moves. And if he doesn't, and still there's checkmate in two moves. I mean, it's like game over at this point. This was the power of Morphy's games. And one of the ways in which you would learn to become a better chess player is to actually study games of this nature, which shows you how does one intuitively understand constraints and ensure that those constraints are pounced upon when given the opportunity. And how do you convert those constrained moves for your opponent into potential checkmates? I think the beauty of Morphy was always that he focused on checkmates relentlessly. He was always looking for an opportunity to checkmate. And that is something, it's a wonderful lesson for all beginners, all intermediate players, to always think that, all you need is one checkmate to finish the game, and you don't have to blindly follow the playbook of somebody else who just says, play this opening, take the middle game, and slowly grind it to an end game. Look for checkmates, and you never know what kind of awesome sacrifices are lying in the wait. So I hope you found this game instructive, and it is something that you can learn from and apply that in the games that you play. All the best. Thank you so much.